Welcome back. You're watching The Full View. It's part of the Metro Focus here on SABC News, and we are focusing on the city of Cape Town. And to help us take the conversation forward, we're joined by political analyst Tara Roos, local government expert and Dullah Omar Institute postdoctoral researcher Dr Johandri Wright, as well as Ndifuna Ukwazi's head of political organizing and campaigns, Buhle Booi. Good evening to all of you, and thank you for making the time to be part of this conversation. I want to start with the theme and the mantra that we hear all the time that says Cape Town is the best run city in the country. On what exactly is that claim based? What are the matrices that we are looking at when we hear that claim? We will counterbalance it with everything else that's then said about Cape Town. But what are the matrices on which we judge this claim that says Cape Town is the best run city in the country? Basic services, financial management, economic vibrancy, safety, what are they? So let me see. Let me start with you, Buhle Booi. Just pick it up for us.
Thank you very much, Tulas. And I think that's a very important question in terms of what we mean when we say the city of Cape Town is a well-run municipality. And maybe to add to your question, my question would be for who? Is best run for who? Because the daily lived reality for the majority of the people in the city of Cape Town, particularly those that are found in the margins of society, in the townships, can tell a different story. Tell a different story in terms of the services in Cape Town. Currently, we've just received a report from the public protector. Amongst the things that the public protector is saying is a very damning reports around the provision of basic services in the township, particularly Kwalanga and Khayelitsha. And of concern is that you even have clinics like Matthew Goniwe and the Town 2 clinic. For instance, Matthew Goniwe could go for 2 to 3 weeks without electricity. And that's a very serious indictment on the municipality's part, because you do not find that in the context of the inner city.
Yeah.
There is no street in the inner city that would go without light. There is no public facility that would go without electricity. But also a very serious concern is that you have majority of people, particularly those in particular black. We must say that the question in the context of Cape Town still very much is gendered but also racial, that majority of black people are found in the outskirts of the city, living in informal settlements. So for people that are living in informal settlements without basic services, this city of Cape Town is not best run. They tell a different story.
Right.
So those are the questions you to ask.
Let me pause you there. We will get to that theme about the differentiated experiences. But let's allow my other guests to also weigh in. Dr. Wright, also on the same point. On what do we claim, on what matrices is this claim of Cape Town being the best run city in the country based?
I think it is a variety of factors that we need to take into account. You need to look at its financial performance, leadership stability, basic services delivery, and with that you can look at things such as the blue drop and the green drop scores. And then a very important point for me is when we say it's a best-run city or a well-run city as opposed to other cities, then we need to take into consideration as well how other cities and other metros are performing, or how other municipalities in South Africa are performing generally, and then measure the city of Cape Town to that. Once you measure the city of Cape Town to other metros, then there is, you can see that it runs a bit better than most other metros. So that's just my short answer for now.
Great. And Tara, I don't know if you want to come in on the same point. Is it largely based on the management of the finances, the clean audit, the 1 year unqualified audit the following year, or is it about the service delivery? And if we're talking service delivery, what are some of the tangibles that we can point to?
I do think when determining what qualifies as a well-rounded city, we need to speak to the residents, and it is the opinions of the residents that matter the most ultimately. Getting a clean audit is not something that is very difficult to do, but when it comes to delivering on services, that is the real test at a local government level. And I think the difficulty in the city of Cape Town is that we often point to it as the best run municipality, but the bar is quite frankly in hell when we look at how municipalities are being run across the country. So the city of Cape Town doing slightly better. I don't think we should give a gold star for very average work.
So let's then get into another claim. And in fact, if I can stick with you, Tara, and ask you about, there was a claim and an award, the Telegraph Travel Awards 2025 named it the best in the world. Does that matter at all?
Well, when we look at the best in the world, they're only really talking about Sea Point, Greenpoint, Camps Bay. We are only looking at the Atlantic seaboard region of the city of Cape Town. I mean, when you leave Cape Town International Airport, you drive through kilometers and kilometers of informal settlements that are not receiving the accurate level of services as these more populous tourist areas are. We cannot judge a city only by the tourist destinations and what is most popular in the city. We need to look across the city and how services are being delivered and the everyday realities of residents who live in these communities. Receiving an award for being a wild travel destination means very little for the everyday lives of the residents of the city of Cape Town.
Dr. Wright, let's talk service delivery, specifically issues, and I want to throw a few figures because fortunately for us in the hurly-burly of politics, a politician will make one claim and then it will be fact-checked. President Cyril Ramaphosa a couple of years ago basically criticizing the city of Cape Town and saying that in comparison with other metros, on average, it has done worse than other metros in terms of basic service delivery, which triggered then the fact-checking by the good people at Africa Check that went back to the Stats SA and came back with a few figures. Allow me to cite a few, talking about between 2011 and 2022, some 349,819 more households in Cape Town gaining access to improved water, which is a percentage point increase of about 1.2% compared to other metros that showed higher percentage increases, percentage point increases. Then we're told between 2011 and 2022, Cape Town providing improved sanitation to about 361,810 more households, and we're told that's a 3.5 percentage point increase, which is lower than in metros like eThekwini and Buffalo City. And lastly, I want to touch on the figure for electricity, where we are told that by 2022, over 360,000 more Cape Town households had access to electricity, which is a 3% increase from 2011. Does this show anywhere in the city, objectively speaking, before we get to the differentiated experience, such as the infrastructure problems we see in some of the townships?
It definitely shows on the Auditor General's report that reported to us that at least 91% of all Cape Townians had access to basic services, so that is weekly refuse removal, sanitation, water and electricity. And then the city of Cape Town also just recently this year embarked on a massive basic service delivery project of a value of 40 billion rand that would invest in creating more basic infrastructure. Mm-hmm. But basic service delivery is it's a complicated system, and especially in informal settlements, the challenge there is usually the settlement would develop first, and then the city will have to come in afterwards and try and solve this infrastructure problem and install infrastructure, whereas traditionally it's supposed to work the other way around. We're first supposed to design an infrastructure system and then put it in. So this brings about its own kind of challenges, and it usually means that it takes a bit longer and it costs a bit more.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's not as easy as just implementing it. It doesn't happen as fast as residents want it to happen. With a disclaimer that it is not always just pointing to challenges. Sometimes cities can actually improve how they put their systems in place and try and streamline things.
Yeah. Buhle, your take, and I know that you are anxious to get to the point about differentiated experiences, but at the moment, if you allow me to just stick on this point, the figures that I've just cited, do you see that anywhere in the city of Cape Town, especially in the communities that concern you the most?
Tulas, I think it's important. I want to start to the point that Tara left us, that the bar is very low. The bar is very low, that we get to a point of praising birds for flying in this country. So that's the crisis, that we praise people for doing the work that they're meant to be doing. Getting a clean audit is part of what government, a corrupt-free government, a clean governance that works for people is meant to have. But in the context of the conversation around the infrastructural conditions for communities, again, to last earlier when I spoke, I pointed to communities in Khayelitsha, Kwalanga, even in the context of facilities like healthcare facilities. I pointed to Metigoni, that goes through 3 weeks without electricity. You have communities in Khayelitsha that are without basic services, none whatsoever, not provided by the state, to an extent that people in these different communities, particularly in informal settlements, are having to prefigure electricity connections, to prefigure water connections.
Sure.
They do this themselves because the state is failing to provide these services for people. And if we want to speak about figures equally, we must also speak about that the city of Cape Town is one of the highest cities, is one of the cities that have the highest housing backlog in this country. That is sitting at 400,000, but actually the Western Cape sitting at well over 600,000, and that's a massive backlog. But you have a city that continues to treat the housing crisis and the homelessness crisis as if it's a crime, as if it will be solved through the use of over-policing of communities. And for instance, what you have is that you have communities that have no basic services, but the city of Cape Town is investing in 180 million rands into wall. And that speaks to huge priority. It speaks to huge priorities in terms of what is prioritized in the city of Cape Town. But I do want to be pragmatic and objective to us in the conversation. In the context of this current administration in the city of Cape Town has released more public parcels of land than any other administration, than any other municipality for the development of social and affordable housing. But the crisis that we're facing is that you have a national government that has allocated less than 2% of its budget to social housing. That means that the delivery of housing programs, particularly like social housing, will not progress, is not viable in the context of the fiscal constraints that we have. But also, just lastly, you have Tafelberg judgment that has said, sure, City of Cape Town, you've released more public parcels of land, but people would not live in pipeline projects. You have quite a lot of pipeline projects. People need housing. Come and tell us in 3 months in terms of how you plan to eradicate the pipeline projects. And that's what we want. We don't want a isomorphic case or mimicry of delivery of public parcels of land without building. The city must build public parcels of land.
Tara, let me bring you in now as we start this discussion then about the differentiated experience. And by the way, you can, if you're joining us at home, join the conversation. The numbers to dial will be showing on the screens. We are particularly keen to hear from you if you live in and around the city of Cape Town. Call in 011-714-0677 or 8 or 9 and weigh in on the conversation. Tara, then, as we get into the differentiated experience, right? Something akin to one city, in fact, one Cape Town, two different cities, two different realities, lived realities. What causes that? Let's talk firstly, just taking advantage of what Buhle was talking about, social housing, the release of land, and then talk about spatial planning. What is the conversation, the difficult conversation about spatial planning that Cape Townians are having or are not having?
You know, the difficulty in the city of Cape Town is that spatial apartheid is so deeply integrated into the infrastructure of the city. the city of Cape Town also historically has the best built infrastructure out of all other municipalities. And what has been happening is we are continuously building on the bones of spatial apartheid instead of directly addressing it at its core. The mayor himself says he believes that spatial apartheid doesn't exist, and that he thinks that it's a myth. But to the everyday residents of Khayelitsha, Langa, Mitchell's Plain, that can't be far from the truth. For many Cape Townians in particular, the difficulty is that we have so many buffer zones that are separating more well-off areas from those of the informal settlements in the townships. Things like railroad tracks that are in between communities that are stopping kids, who go to school in Langa, where there is a private school just a few meters away from them in Pinelands, but cannot access that school because there is no road to walk on in between them. It's just railroad tracks and they have to walk around. So, for many, many residents, I think the difficulties that they're now facing is that for years, spatial apartheid has gone unaddressed. And the city is spending a lot of infrastructure. I mean, they've spent 40 billion over the 2025-2026 financial year. But that is mostly going towards the CBD, the foreshore, the Atlantic seaboard, to build up infrastructure projects there rather than directly addressing those needs within the community. And I think, it's coming to a boiling point in this upcoming election because the city is biting at two ends of the stick. On one hand, we have their more traditional voting bases saying we are very upset with our rates and taxes. We do not like all of these cleaning fees and levies that are coming onto the city. And equally, we have those who live in informal settlements who say we haven't seen any structural change. Where to from here?
Yeah. Dr. Wright, weigh in, please, on that differentiated experience and what Tara is describing, and many activists actually describe as spatial apartheid. What accounts for it, in your view?
I also think it's mainly historical, and it can only really be addressed through formal adoption of formal policies and within the municipality's planning. And it all starts with the integrated development plan that contains the spatial development framework, which quite literally is a geographical map and planning representation of what the city wants to look like and wants to do in the next couple of years. So addressing this inequality has to start literally in the planning phase, and then it has to trickle down through its budget and subsequent policies. And it has to obviously let the public weigh in, give enough opportunity for public participation, and it's inadequate for the city to say, yes, we are complying with public participation processes without actually doing some form of awareness raising. So we at the Dullah Omar Institute had the project last year where we did a reach out and gave some basic civic education to community leaders to tell them where to get basic governance information. And you would be quite surprised at what communities do not know. And if they don't know how to participate in these very important planning and budgetary processes, how are they going to give their views and give their inputs, and so subsequent change can happen?
All right, let's allow our viewers to weigh in at this point. Clifford joins us from Cape Town. Good evening to you, Clifford. Short and sharp for me, please, if you don't mind.
How's it? Fine. This is Clifford from Cape Town. I just wanted to say the Democratic Alliance has done at least fairly well. But what we are not satisfied is the areas of Langa, Cape Town, and so on, where there's little development or nothing at all. I've been listening to one of the panelists, Mr. Booi. He said it correctly.
Yeah.
That now Cape Town is a city with is divided into two. Where we find blacks, there are little developments. Yes, but when we say on paper, yes, but audit findings, good and so on. But the practical part, especially in the black settlement, it's appalling.
Yeah. All right. Clifford, thank you for that. Let me bring you in, Buhle Booi. Just responding, I think, Tara, you alluded to this, and you said, and I've not heard the mayor myself, but I have no reason to doubt what you're saying, that the mayor doesn't believe in spatial apartheid and says it's a myth. Is part of the problem that Clifford talks to, Buhle, is it partly in that, in the sense of not even acknowledging this differentiated spatial planning problem?
No, thank you. Thank you, Tulas. Indeed, I mean, the mayor did say that special justice is a propaganda terminology, is a propaganda term. And they've been proven wrong by the Constitutional Court, the Apex Court, saying that in city of Cape Town, we still have special injustice. In the city of Cape Town, the city of Cape Town in particular has failed in its constitutional obligation to redress spatial apartheid. That's what the Apex Court has said. And maybe part of the problem, you're quite correct, Tulas, is that there's a lack of political will to address spatial injustice. You have a premier in this province that doesn't want to release public land, and what we have, Tulas, in this province is an internal case of discord in the Democratic Alliance. You have a DA that is divided. You have a mayor in the city of Cape Town that is releasing public parcels of land. You have a premier that is refusing to release public parcels of land to redress spatial apartheid. So that's a problem. Maybe the problem that we have is that you have things from the past that are deeply ingrained in the bloodstreams of those that are in the political office, and that would need to be taken out by force. But what needs to happen to us is that there needs to be some kind of policy intervention in the city of Cape Town, insofar as addressing this spatial injustice question. And one of the ways to do that is to release public land and build on this primarily located land, but also an inclusionary housing policy is needed in the city of Cape Town to address the question of exorbitant rentals, to make sure that private developers have some social contributions, that they are able to build social housing on site, so that those that are caught in the margins of society, in the peripheries, are brought closer, so that people are closer to socio-economic opportunities, to better job opportunities, and to better healthcare systems. That's what we need in the city.
Let me ask you to pause there for a moment, and let's bring in one of our viewers, Anonymous, calling from Cape Town. Good evening to you. Short and sharp, if you don't mind.
Good evening, Dullah. I want to say to you, I don't understand. I don't know where it comes from, this thing of saying Cape Town is a best-run municipality. I think it's a best-run municipality for the white people. Because if you go to the black areas, you still find the black people, you feel to be black in Cape Town. It's how, if you drive around to all the cities in South Africa, but if you go to Cape Town, it's where you can see what black people are much more far poorer than their counterpart, white people. You go to city, I used to work for City of Cape Town. City of Cape Town is racist. You go there, you'll never see a black director there. All white directors and black people are in a lower level. And that thing, you see it when in the service delivered. Decisions that are making by the city. But when it comes to the budget, to the areas of the black society, there is nothing happening. Go to Samora Machel, go to Brown's Farm. It's where you will see the worst service delivered you will ever come across. Cape Town crime is created because of the lack of service delivered. It's not because when you keep people congested, there's no light, there's no everything, you will find where people are killing each other.
Right. Anonymous, thank you. Thank you for that. You flag another theme that we'll turn to in the next few minutes, the theme around crime and the extent to which, or the limited extent to which policing becomes a metropolitan or municipal function. But we won't do that before I let Tara Roos weigh in on this question. So Tara, hearing everything that we are hearing, please juxtapose it for us with the claim that is consistently made by City of Cape Town leaders, provincial leaders and their supporters, especially in the political party that governs both the city and the Western Cape province, being the Democratic Alliance, that actually the City of Cape Town spends more on service delivery for poorer areas than it does for affluent areas. Does it? By some estimates that we've been given, we've been told, advanced by some DA or city leaders and their supporters, 75% of its infrastructure budget is spent on low-income households. Does it?
So when we're looking at the DA claiming that they're spending more money providing basic services to poorer areas, that is also largely because poorer areas, in proportion to more affluent areas, are larger in size. They're larger in size, they're larger in scale, they have higher population densities. So it would naturally make sense that you are spending more money to service lower income areas because there are more people there and because the land masses are larger. Furthermore, when we look at how spending is allocated in the city of Cape Town, each ward in the city gets R1 million a year. R1 million a year to spend on that ward. That seems quite bizarre to me, given the fact that some wards are smaller, they are more affluent, where residents themselves privatize, pay for security, pay for refuse removal. They have private services within those areas. And you need to take the same R1 million for Constantia as we have R1 million spent in Lango Khayelitsha, where double, even triple the size of people live in a small condensed area. So when we look at laws like that, that isn't equitable in the city. The city, again, speaking about how 75% of the infrastructure budget goes towards lower income areas. Something big that they point to is the expansion of the My City bus route that is now going to go into Khayelitsha. But we also have to look at the fact that that is an afterthought. When the My City was built in its essence, it was not to provide transport for all residents of Cape Town. It primarily only works in the CBD foreshore Atlantic seaboard. So, we do have to address these claims under a microscope. And I think, the anonymous caller that called in proves a very valid point that, often, and the DA makes this argument broadly, is that they're the most diverse party in the country, that all their supporters are diverse, but the country is majority black. Majority of the residents in the city of Cape Town are black, and it is majority black residents who are not receiving equal service delivery, and that is an inescapable fact.
All right, we'll turn to the theme around safety, but before I do that, I do want to bring in Mr. Zed from Cape Town. Good evening to you, short and sharp, if you don't mind.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir. Are you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm a vet at Matatele as I speak, but I'm born there in Kukubetu. I'm studying my school there in Fezera.
Yes.
At most time, I'm visiting there as analyzing when you go around the situation of Cape Town. But the main problem, you need to face it. Cape Town is the town. When you move from the rural area to go to the Cape Town, you must pay the rent, pay water, pay electricity. The province causing problem in Cape Town is the Eastern Cape. Mabuyane in their own province, they do nothing. All the Eastern Cape, they're moving from Eastern Cape to the Western Cape. So the budget of the Eastern Cape is overpopulation. The people don't belong there. If the South Africans like Mabuya and they're doing something in the Eastern Cape, all the people of Eastern Cape, they support, but they stay in Eastern Cape, they work in Eastern Cape, because Western Cape, if they're building houses today, then they said move people from there. Those people there, they're taking another one in the Eastern Cape, they're continuing. So now that province is looking at not doing any nothing.
Mr. Zed?
The overpopulation in the Eastern Cape is from Eastern Cape. Mabuyane, they must assist him to manage Eastern Cape.
Right. Mr. Zed, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this evening. That's Mr. Zed out in Cape Town. I'm almost out of time. Dr. Wright, so I'd want to, when I'm running out of time, I throw cluster questions. Talk to the issue around community safety, the issues around crime, right? Because while I've been making the point that in terms of the concurrent areas of responsibility, some not being concurrent in terms of the schedules of the Constitution, policing is more provincial and national than it is local, except for, of course, bylaw enforcement and traffic management and the likes. Increasingly, the city of Cape Town is clamoring for more powers in as far as that is concerned. Would that address the underlying issues around some of the crime that we are seeing in communities around Cape Town?
So traditionally that was the view, yes, but last year some new regulations was published for public comment that extends the powers that Metro Police officers would have quite extensively. It even includes a few investigative powers. So this would help metropolitan police officials to more effectively discharge their mandate of preventing crime, which is what they have to do. That is my short answer, and I would quickly like to weigh in on the service delivery aspect, on the city's claim that they spend so much money on service delivery for less affluent areas. So one important point that we need to remember is that often the measure with which they provide services is like water tankering or stationary water tanks for many of these informal settlements. And those are exorbitant measures. It's not very efficient or effective, and that's also why they spend a lot more money in those areas as opposed to the more affluent areas which already have established infrastructure networks.
I see. We're out of time. Buhle Booi, final word to you. What does this all mean for the 4th of November?
No, thanks, Tulas. I think one of the important things going to the 4th of November, the communities will need to take a decision in terms of which political party has advanced their interests and vote accordingly. I think it's important that people get basic services, and they should not be deprived of basic services because they're preferring housing solutions in the context of occupations and living in informal settlements. Everyone deserves a right to housing. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. And I think the masses of our people will decide on the 4th of November and will decide whether they will punish the Democratic Alliance for its failures in the city.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for that, Buhle Booi. If you don't mind, Tara, can I be dictatorial and snatch the mic from you and not give you your final word? That is Tara Roos there, who is a political analyst. We were, of course, joined by local government expert and Dullah Omar Institute postdoctoral researcher, Dr Johandri Wright, as well as Ndifuna Ukwazi's head of political organizing and campaigns, Buhle Booi. That's been our Metro Focus for this Tuesday. Do join us. The road to the 4th of November is still quite long. 71 days, is that what I see there? Yeah, 71 days to go. We'll continue with this. So join us next week as we put another Metro under the spotlight.